cocky maybe. I don't, they just don't really know what it's like to actually live there.
So eventually you were talking about, you go to the city, continue with that and what happens and you end up getting taken to New York City and all of that stuff.
Yeah, so he hadn't kind of padlocked. It was hard to get out. I was stuck in this addiction, cycle of downward spiral where I didn't have any other means to turn to. I ended up in this New York City for a few days, selling myself. He was supposed to be giving me the money that I was making, and I would find out later he was just keeping everything for himself.
First, you said that he had locked you in an apartment in Rochester, right?
Yeah, he was in a house on Norton, I think, but yeah. So I did try to get out numerous times. I got in physical altercations with him, trying to get out, trying to be like, this is not what you told me it would be like. And he was definitely didn't care about anybody's lives for that matter.
So when you're locked in this house, I mean, are you afraid like, holy shit, am I ever going to make it out of here?
Yeah, I think I was just so desperate to get that drug and to not feel that I was I guess that was kind of covering up, how real it was. I was scared. I mean, I think I had, it's kind of hard to remember everything, but I think I had gotten out of this house before I went to New York City, and I ran, I was running away, sort of, and I don't know how he found me again, but he found me again on the street and brought me back. I was in the bushes. It's kind of hard to remember the details on that, but yeah, it was scary, and he was not a nice person, and yeah, so I'm glad that I wasn't there for longer and that I got out, but.
And eventually he takes you to New York City, you said, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's it like for you in New York City?
Yeah, so in New York City, I was just basically working the whole time I was there. This other girl was kind of one that drew me into with him, and she was just like his drawing girls in, trying to make them feel safe in order to use them. So she didn't care. So, but she was trying to act like a friend, and so I was with her. So it wasn't, I don't even know how to explain her, but it really was just business. And we came back, I guess.
So you come back. Now, when you get back from New York City, what happens?
So I came back and really realized, what this guy was doing. Like, he was really not giving me any of the money. He was just giving me like a little bit of drugs, and so I wasn't sick. It was ridiculous. So, and before I hadn't been able to get out, I didn't have a phone. He had given me because he only had heroin, and I used heroin and coke together most of the time. So he'd given me $10 to get coke. So I was telling him that I was just getting, because he didn't have any, I was getting it from somebody. And I called who ended up being my daughter's father to come pick me up. And because I told him I was, getting that, I was able to get out of the house. And then I left with him.
So he's kind of like the dealer, and you call him up and you're like, hey, look, come get me. Yeah.
I mean, I had met him maybe shortly before this, and he kind of knew that I was starting to do that because I had lost all, I didn't have any money. I told him I was trying, to get more money, and then I told him what happened, and he just had me. So I had some relationship with him already. So I ended up just staying at his house from there on out, and he didn't, luckily I didn't have to do that or go back to, end up with that guy again.
So, I mean, when you're, and eventually you have a child with this guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was he doing? Did he have you working? Did he not want you doing that stuff? I mean, what was the relationship like?
Yeah, so he was a little different than most of the people out there. I don't think they really care about, junkies per se. I mean, I think maybe that's why some Black people don't use heroin, is because they see what it does to these white people who are so desperate to get drugs. And it's really, really kind of a horrific nightmare seeing these women or, guys so desperate. And I think they don't want to be like that either. I don't know, that's kind of how I thought about it. But he was a little different. He wanted me to be sober. So